Hey, everybody. Oh, Jesus, I did the fucking video intro. The video, I'm so used to the hey-heys. Hey.
It's like Krusty the Clown a little bit that way.
I'm so bad. Like, I do it all with everything. Like, I always say, like, thank you, or, oh, take care. Like, I just always do double saying. So I did it on one of the videos when I stopped doing the 15 minutes of game, and I just have done it ever since.
Yeah. It's something that, like, Glenn and I would look out for, like, in movies. Anytime a character would say a line twice in movies, like, Glenn and I would just fucking lose it.
Yeah.
Like, because
I'm so bad about that.
Oh. But yeah, like, there was, like, I think one of the, like, last, for ending scenes in, like, Super 8, like, the dad hugs his son, and he's like, I got you. Like, Glenn and I are just, like, dying.
That is pretty good.
Oh.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Noldery.
Hey, folks.
And John Hines.
Hi there.
And we are back, as always, to talk about some video games, which is what we do per usual. And I guess I'm just going to take the lead tonight or this week.
You do it.
Because earlier today, I was streaming some games, actually. I tried streaming, last night, and my internet cut out on me. We're actually having a little bit of internet issues tonight. We're going video free while we record the podcast.
Right. No faces.
Yeah, we're just going to have to semi-wing it. But yeah, we're comfortable enough at this point. This is, we're almost 100 episodes in.
Exactly.
But yeah, I ended up streaming a while back, just Cam H, and his name is actually Cameron, but that's what he goes by as a developer, put together this care package bundle of 7 games for $7 that came out, like, I don't know if this was intended, but it came out almost exactly a year after the pandemic started, like right in March, and it was kind of like, here's a nice package of like 7 wholesome games.
Nice.
I think there was actually like 1 or 2 more games that were supposed to be in the bundle that kind of the developers had some things come up and kind of dropped off, so they lowered the price. Again, it ended up being just like $1 a game, and you can pick up all these games separately for, most of them run for like $2 or $3, but like the ones that really caught my eye, there's one game called Remnant's Flag that I really, really want to play. I gotta rig up, it's only got keyboard controls,
okay,
but I'm gonna have to rig up a controller setup because it has like, it's a precision platformer, and you're kind of like, you use the arrow keys essentially to move your character around, and you use up to jump, and then you use the WASD keys. So kind of like what goes up, like we talked about, where you're kind of using those 2 control schemes to like move your character in different ways.
Right.
Your character is actually holding this flag, so like you can do a regular jump by hitting up with the arrow keys, but if you hit down with the flag keys, you're gonna like kind of pole vault with the flag like off of the ground to do like an extra high jump. And then, for example, later in the game, from some of the clips I've seen, you like, you're bouncing off the walls and like, pressing to the left or with WASD to like launch yourself off of a wall further than you would, just wall jump off of it. So that game has like a really stylish look to it. Really, I love my precision platformers. So like that game caught my eye. There's another game called Magnum Opus X that's like a kind of run and gun platformer. I don't know if they're going for like a Mega Man X kind of look, but it's definitely like a run and gun platformer where you just have this like huge magnum that you can either smack enemies with or blow them away with. The whole concept of the game is like blow away negativity with your giant magnum.
I thought this was wholesome.
Yeah, that one. The whole pitch of that one was like, can a wholesome game have a magnum revolver? And it's like, yes, it can.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's just some really cool stuff, and even the game from just Cam H, or from Cameron, his game is like called a Bit Adventure, I think, or something to that effect. But like it's kind of like this AI character that you kind of talk to, and it kind of procedurally generates worlds that you explore around. And it's like, as it kind of like convert, like, I don't know, it seemed like a very like laid back but like really charming and quirky adventure. But some of these games, again, had all like keyboard and mouse controls, which I know I've mentioned many times on the podcast are something I kind of struggle with. Yeah. Not that I can't work around that with anti-micro, but I just haven't had the time to get around to that yet. But I did talk about a couple of games from Kultisti a couple weeks ago, Rusty Wind Blows and Robo Razi.
Yeah.
And I have been playing Kultisti games all week. I've actually got 4 of their games I'm going to talk about today.
Nice.
But their newest game, and I'll split it up a little bit. I won't gush for too long here, or at least not too consistently. But yeah, I really was looking forward to checking out their game, Lonely People Potion Shop, which was included in this care package bundle, just pretty much based on the style. I know I've mentioned on the podcast too that I'm not the biggest like story game player, or that's not the biggest draw for me in a video game.
Yeah.
But in this case, I was just kind of like, I really love the art style, and I've loved every Kultisti game so far that I've played of the, 5 or 6 that I've checked out. And this seems maybe a little out of the ordinary for me, but at the same time, it's like, it's kind of like this first person perspective, and you just play, it's called, I don't know if I mentioned it already, but it's called Lonely People Potion Shop. Did I say that already?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, no.
I don't think I did either. Yeah, so I was half expected to have to restart there, but yeah, Lonely People Potion Shop is the name of the game, and it's like you kind of play as this lonely witch that runs this potion shop, and you do have a friend of some kind, or at least I'm assuming they're your friend. I only played through the first day, which took like 45 minutes, an hour or so. It says there's even right on the games page, it says about 2 hours of gameplay, and then there's like a free play mode. But basically, you act as like a bartender, and people come to your potion shop, and you're like, you're in the middle of a forest, and you're like really surprised whenever a customer comes in. And then you have your friend Ilaria that lives with you, and they go out and gather some ingredients for you from time to time. And it's just like really, really unbelievably charming. It has this really great pixel art style. And then like, again, like the customers will always like get a potion when they come in. So like the last person I talked to was Orb the Wizard. And like, it took them a long time to even like get their name out. And they're just like, I'm a wizard, but like, I don't like going to all these like wizard competitions. I just like to like be a wizard and like do magic when I need to, or when I want to, but like I don't need to like show off and like be the best wizard. I just want to be a wizard.
Not everything needs to be a competition. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the witch your character goes into this story, and at least for me it was very like almost, there were 5 or 6 times during, and I actually played a stream with Kultisti actually hanging out in the stream. Nice. So I'll put a little link to that. So you can maybe see some of the chat. They actually fixed a little bug while I was playing with the audio. They're like, hey, there'll be a patch right after you're done where like the audio would like just when it would loop over, it would kind of like get real quiet again and like reset almost. And like, oh, fix that while you were playing. But yeah, I just found it so like delightful, so charming. And like each character you talk to will have like, a conversation tree or whatever, where you clearly have like these 3 like green options, or sometimes more than that, where it's like you can just keep conversing with this person if you want to. And then if the purple option is kind of like the wrap up, like in any RPG, like I'm done talking to you, goodbye then, kind of conversation, wrap up the conversation. But yeah, you end up making a potion and you get these ingredients. Right now I have 3 different kind of like liquid ingredients, and then 4 different spices and whatnot that I can throw in. And usually, at least for now, in the first day, I can mix up like 2 ingredients and then 1 spice and kind of stir them up. And then it has, I don't know if it's procedurally generated as far as the art goes, or if they're all like handcrafted based on the combinations. But there's like a little like, zoom up potion, with a little, again, you almost are like a little bartender, but it's in this real cool like pixel art style. Like if you see it, it's just very striking. And it just kept me pulled through. And like, again, because I'm not such a big story guy, I still felt like the way the conversations moved were just like, and a lot of times, like, again, I would say like, oh man, this person seems really nice. And then like this next second, like the witch would just be like, oh, what a nice person. And even sometimes like the witch's dialogue will be like in parentheses. So it's kind of like in your head. And you'll get lost in like the dream world for a minute. So it's just really, really charming. And again, I just love finding these little small indie developers and kind of encouraging me to venture out of my comfort zone a little bit, because I've loved all their other games so much. I was like, even though it's a visual novel, I'll give it a spin.
That's sweet.
Yeah. And I actually ended up jumping from there, and this was not a game included in the care package bundle, but I kept playing some more Kultisti games because I was like, day one seems like a good place to wrap it up. But I played some, and I played some of this the other day too, and it's called Don't Eat My Mind, You Stupid Monsters, which is, number one, an amazing name for a game. But it's a top-down, like, very light, arcade roguelike situation where, like, essentially you're playing, the game takes place inside of your mind, and then you're running around, and there's like a breakdown meter that ticks down as time goes by, and then as that reaches 0, 3 tiles will disappear. And I would say it's I don't know exactly, but it's probably like an 8x6 or 8x8 grid. It's definitely a rectangle, so it's not an even square. But every tile, like as the tiles disappear, like once they all disappear, you're dead.
Okay.
And you can basically, you have like a melee, like sword slash attack, and then you have a dash, and you kind of are using actually mouse and keyboard controls. Again, I did kind of rig this one up to work in a way that it was more comfortable for me. Mm-hmm. But I did on the stream, I was playing with a half controller, half mouse, but you use the left click to swing your sword and the right click to dash, and you have like kind of a limited radius, and you'll clear 3 or 4 waves. And then after you clear 4 waves of enemies, then you get to pick from like one of 3 buffs where you can either slow down that breakdown timer, where the tiles, will fall away a little bit more slowly, or you can like increase the range of your jump or your dash, or increase the length of your sword. Like you get quite a few different buff. There's probably 4 or 5 different buff options, and then those can be upgraded usually 3 or 4 times each. And you're pretty much just going for a high score. Every enemy you kill is worth a few points, and there's, from all I've seen at least, there's just 2 different types of enemies. There's kind of like these trees that spawn, and then there's like these blobs that those will start eating away the level tiles as well. Like after they eat away a tile, they'll move to the next adjacent one. And if they end up on kind of like a lone island, they'll eat that tile and then just disappear. But also, so the thing, as that breakdown timer goes down, that's going to make your tiles disappear. But if you are at any point, you can if you won't walk off of a tile on your own, you'll kind of stick to the edges of the islands or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you dash and miss a tile or whatever, and you're kind of in the void area, then you'll kind of like, the breakdowns will just keep coming until you get back on solid ground.
Okay.
So it gets like really hectic, really frantic. I was trying my best to go for a 200 high score. I think I got to like 193 or something like that.
Okay.
Which Kultisti said was pretty good. They didn't give me high praise or anything, but they said it was pretty good. So I was happy enough to leave it there. But again, I just got so sucked in. It's got this really great art style, kind of similar to Rusty Wind Blows, and even like, all of their games seem to have this kind of like, or I shouldn't say all, but many of their games have this kind of cohesiveness, like to where that if they told me like, hey, all of my games take place in the same universe with these same handful of characters or the same like species or something, I would believe that.
Nice.
Which is really cool. They just have such a unique, and again, going to their itchio page, they're not all games, but they have 50 projects. Like some of them are like digital zines and just all kinds of crazy. Like if you're into cool pixel art or cool just digital stuff or indie games, if you're into any of those things, like I really, really recommend checking out some stuff from Kultisti. And like I said, I've got a couple more games of theirs to mention later, but I probably can stop gushing about those games, but man, you guys really got to try some of these Kultisti games. I'll maybe curate a little, best of, because there's still so many more I got to check out. But again, awesome. I'll get back to that in a little bit. But Randall, I know that you and I have been taking a little time to dig into some retro games that we have kind of never. I shouldn't say never had the chance to play, but never taken the time to play.
Kind of both.
And sort of never had the chance. Yeah, in many ways, because some of these have been out of our range.
Yes,
out of our price range. That is
big time.
Yeah, and after we talked about Fire and Ice on the podcast recently, which was an NES game that was a super rare, hard to find cartridge, at least if you're into that, NES collecting kind of thing.
Which I am.
That just got added. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And that's probably the only reason we were aware of that game, is because we knew it was like, hey, it's super rare. And it's,
and so it turns out it's an excellent game, too. Go back to that
it's
episode.
Amazing.
Fire and Ice is awesome.
Yeah, it's so fun. Yeah. And I think that was kind of what sparked this, is like, man, that was a game that we kind of just assumed, we're never going to get to play Fire and Ice. So, it'll be cool to just fantasize about how cool that game could be because it looks awesome.
Yep.
And we finally got a chance to play that. And then I was kind of thinking, I had my emulator all hooked up to play Bobble and Micro Mages from Morph Cat recently.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? Why don't I fire up Little Samson? Because that is a game that goes for, I think, over $1,000 these days.
So I looked that up before we started recording, and as of right now, price charting has it at between $1,400 and $1,500 loose.
Oof.
Just the cartridge.
Oof. Because I remember a point in time, like when I was a little heavier into the collecting, like it was probably in the $500 range.
Right. Yes.
And like because I remember there was a point where I was like, maybe I'll get the Famicom cartridge because I have a top loader.
Yeah.
And I was like, it'll work. It'll play the Famicom cartridge. I was like, maybe I'll get the Famicom cartridge because it's only like $250.
Yep.
And it's still that's insane.
Yeah, that was still a shit ton of money at that time for a retro game.
Oh yeah. So the fact that it's like tripled in value since then is just like, it's insane.
Yep.
But it was, I think I did fire this one up like a really long time ago when I first discovered emulators, and I just kind of like fired up a bunch of different games. Just checked it out for a quick second just to say like, oh yeah, I've checked out Little Samson, but I finally took some time to play some more of this, and I know you did it as well, Randall. So why don't I let you take the lead on this one since I've been gushing about Kultisti for a minute here.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, Little Samson is made in '92, developed by Takaru and published by Taito. And it's kind of a through line, the whole 1992 thing I was noticing, because Fire and Ice was also 92. And the game we're going to talk about next is also 92.
That's right. That is right.
Late NES releases tended to be
because what was it like?
expensive.
92, 93 was kind of the end of the NES era.
Yep.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, Kirby's Adventure might have been even a little bit later than that. But yeah, like
that was the one I was thinking of. I want to say that one's 93, but it might be 94. But beyond that, it's kind of like, that's kind of the end of the NES.
Big time, considering Super Nintendo in America was 91 already. Right. So like this is coming out in an already established 16-bit world. Like both main 16-bit competitors were already out and establishing themselves by the time these games came out.
Yeah, and when you consider that Super Mario World was a launch title for Super Nintendo, it's not like, there was a learning curve for this system to get good. It's like good games came out right off the bat.
Immediately, Yeah. But I'm, like I've said this before, I'm a huge sucker for these games that come out at the end of console, lifespans. Like just squeezing the most you can out of the existing hardware limitations. And like Little Samson does that to some degree. Not as much as the next game we're going to talk about, I don't think.
Oh, yeah, big time. You can tell they cut some corners in Little Samson, which I think we'll probably get into in this discussion. I'm guessing, at least I will. But
I'm kind of curious to see what you think about that. But there's still some pretty cool, ambitious things here. Like you have 4 separate characters you can play as, which is not a very common thing and on an 8-bit system. And each character, it's kind of cool the way this game starts. It kind of introduces you to those characters separately with their own levels.
Yeah.
That first level select screen is really cool, too, because not only can you see, whatever character you want to play as first and whatever level you want out of the 4, kind of a la Mega Man style. But it does that little like level preview on the side. I didn't quite realize that's what that was at first, but I'm like, oh man, that's super cool. Like I had not seen that before.
Oh, you're talking about like that kind of rectangle of like so that's that is right. It is kind of like the actual like scroll of the level kind of.
It is. Yeah. I'm like, oh man, that's sweet. Like I didn't actually notice that the first time, and I'm like, but I was playing back through again. I'm like, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, wow. And on top of that, you have like the character like rotating around like 360 degrees, where like it does have some depth to it. It does look 3-dimensional the way it spins, and even that's kind of the way Samson jumps is like this spin jump, and it just looks really cool.
It does. They did a good job with the sprite art in this game. Really nice looking that way. And then the kind of a cool little extra thing with the soundtrack where like each character has their own theme essentially.
Yeah.
So, which you wouldn't necessarily know from playing those first 4 levels because you only can play as those characters. So that, like, to you, that's the soundtrack of that level. But once you get past those first 4 levels, then the game opens up even more into this world map area where then you can select among those 4 characters by hitting the pause menu and just selecting a different one. But they have different attributes where Samson's kind of your regular character with a general projectile and, normal life bar. You've got a mouse.
Very like run and gun Mega Man style.
Exactly. Which is, it's very, very, very similar to Mega Man in some ways, especially if you're just playing with the Samson character, the main character.
Yeah, although a little more mobile with the ability to like wall climb and climb on ceilings, which I'm sure you were just going to say, but
yes. But the mouse in particular is extremely agile and mobile to just crawl on ceilings, and any area that's not like pointy essentially is something that the mouse can get on, and that comes in handy pretty quickly once you get into those more difficult world map levels. But the mouse only has like 2 hit points as compared to the rest of the characters that have quite a bit more. There's a couple other characters too. There's kind of like a golem type of character that's got a lot of hit points, and he hits pretty hard, but he's very slow. And he's got
can't jump quite as high.
No, he doesn't have a lot of agility that way. But comes in handy.
But he can
on those
walk
bosses.
on spikes and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes, and then the dragon can do a little hover fly thing, which is very convenient because there's a lot of platforming sections in this. This is essentially an NES horizontal platform for the most part.
A little bit of verticality with the climbing stuff, but not too much. Yeah, you're scrolling left to right for the most part.
Yep. But this game gets tough, man.
Oh yeah.
Goodness. Like, I think I made it to the 4th level on the world map. Like, got past those intro levels where they're just introducing the characters to you, essentially. Yeah. And then, like, 4th level, and just barely. Like, I thought I was going to have to be done on the 3rd level where it's got those, like, disappearing and reappearing platforms. Like, that was tough enough.
Oh, yeah, because those are, at first I was like, this is fucking impossible. But then I realized that, like, even when they disappear, they're still there, the platforms. So I was like, the enemies are staying there. Yes. So I was like, oh, they're okay. They're signaling that. But at first I thought it was like, those Mega Man blocks that pop up and do like the.
Yep.
I was expecting that kind of platforming. So I was like, oh my God. And you're not only platforming, but you're doing like wall grabs and climbing up the side of things, getting to the top. And Samson can also wall or hang from the ceilings and stuff as well. So there's like, you're doing a lot of juggling around. And the interesting thing is, like, each character, like you mentioned, Randall, has its own health bar.
Yes.
And like along the way, you actually pick up like RPG style, like you get like little health, like heart container upgrades,
right?
That like buff your characters. They do seem to all have like a max. Like you can only pick up like 2 or 3 of those maybe with each character.
Mm-hmm.
And then so again, like the mouse still has the least amount of health overall once you have everybody upgraded.
Right.
But I just thought that was kind of interesting because I did actually at one point I used like a save state to pick up where I left off, and I like took a screenshot and I like misused it on accident, and I like overwrote the save state.
Oh no.
And so I was like, oh, well, I'll just punch in the password. But I started it with none of those health upgrades that I picked up.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, no. And I was like, you know what? I think I'd rather replay that level I just beat and still be buffed up. But they do, like, they spread those out throughout the game. But it is a little bit of a bummer that, like, you pick them up later and they don't give you, like, health instead if you're already full on your heart containers or whatever, your health containers.
Yeah.
But, like, it would be nice if they powered you up, but you can pick up potions to refill your character's health. And the interesting thing, too, is like if any character dies other than Little Samson, they will not be playable until you get like a game over again or until you get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
But if Samson dies, it seems like you don't lose him as a playable character. So
yeah, the boss battles were pretty fun, too. I had a good time with those.
They're really fun.
Yeah.
Really fun, really challenging, and kind of unique.
Did you play? I just defaulted to the easy mode because that was the default. Did you play on normal or easy?
I played on normal, and I gotta say, I got pretty far.
Nice.
I think, like, I don't know, because that world map, I don't know if it was doing the same thing for you, but I feel like I was just kind of bouncing all over the place.
Yes, definitely.
Like, because at first it looks like there's like I don't know, 6 skulls kind of on the map, and you kind of start like on one of them or very close to it. So I was like, oh, that must be these 6 levels. And then I kind of like, because it does seem like there's at times like different exits to levels, sort of, you know, Super Mario World style.
Yeah.
Like there's clearly like a high path and a low path. And I don't know if that was making like a difference between which one I picked, or if it was just like, oh, here's the way you can go if you know, if you've already died with the dragon, you know, if you can't fly and you can't wall climb anymore.
Right.
You know, I just didn't know if they were maybe designing it around that or if it was just changing. But I was just popping all over the map. But I feel like I got to like some boss battles that felt pretty climactic. I wouldn't say I'm at like the end, but I feel like I'm getting to like the ramp up to the end. I'm like very close to like the top of the map where like those top like couple skulls are at. So,
jeez.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying it. The thing that I was, you know, you mentioned, I really like how each character has its own theme song, but that was kind of one of the things I was thinking of where I was like, maybe they had to cut some corners where like they were pushing it so much visually that they had to like limit the amount of music in the game, maybe.
Yeah, you know, it would have been nice to have more songs. Yeah, that way. Like I wish it wasn't attached to the characters necessarily. I kind of, yeah.
Like it is cool, but it's like a bummer, especially like if you're already let's say you pause the game and you're playing as Samson and like you don't actually switch the character, but you just unpause it.
Yeah.
It actually restarts the song when you unpause it. It's just like little tiny things that are just like a tad janky. Like that would, again, if like each level had its own theme song and like that would put this game on like the all-time classic NES status.
Yeah, it's good.
And I'd say it's like pretty darn close to that. Like, yeah, it's definitely like worth checking out. Again, maybe not worth $1,500, but depending on, I don't know how, you know, I don't know your lifestyle, but it's not worth $1,500 for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I've got plenty of other games. I can't quite spare that on this, but I'm glad I got to experience it. I would say that.
Yeah. I feel exactly the same. Yeah, kind of like I'm glad I checked it out. I do kind of feel compelled to potentially try to beat it.
Ooh, nice.
But I don't always feel that way with games. But like I just got so far on that one run. I can't remember if I was streaming it or if I was just playing for fun. But like I definitely chipped away further than I expected to.
It's good.
I just kind of kept going. Yeah,
it plays well.
Yeah, it holds up. Definitely,
it does.
Holds up.
Yeah, it's because it's one of those late games.
Yeah. And yeah, speaking of another late game, I think we can probably just go into the next one that we were going to talk about, Randall.
Let's do it.
And this is one that I think there's been some like reproduction carts out there of this one because I want to say, Randall, that you had picked one up.
I did.
Years and years ago.
Yep.
And it was a game that came out, I think, only in Japan and Scandinavia, if I'm not mistaken. I did a little research myself on this one.
Yep.
But I think almost like a year later in Scandinavia, it was like 93, I think, when it came out. They were like the only people that decided to pick it up or import it. But the game's called Gimmick, or I think then in Scandinavia it was called Mr. Gimmick.
Yes.
But yeah, this was a game I want to say from Sunsoft.
Yes.
And it's and Sunsoft is a very like unsung hero of the NES. I feel.
Sunsoft is incredible on NES. They knew exactly how to make that thing sing. They were like a top tier developer on the NES.
They're on the Capcom, Konami, Nintendo level. Like maybe they don't have as deep of a catalog.
Oh
but
man,
they honestly probably do. Between like Blaster Master, like that's the only one that comes to mind off the top of my head. But I know they have a ton more.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they just have like. They've
Journey
been
to
a solid
Silius,
developer.
Gremlins 2.
That's right,
Batman.
Journey to Silius. Yeah. Oh yeah, just a super solid developer. So yeah, that was another one that like I think because your cartridge didn't work on your NES or whatever you had at the time, you gave the cartridge to me because I had the top loader. It didn't work on the top loader for me. Like I could get the game to boot, but it would never quite work properly.
Yep. So
I finally, since we booted up Little Samson, I was like, you know what? Why don't I give Gimmick a try too? Because I always wanted to play this game. And it, it's got this really bright, like they really pushed like, maybe even beyond Kirby's Adventure status. I mean, they really push the NES cartridge to as far as like the soundtrack, like just everything going on, even like, it's a really interesting and more than anything, the physics, I would say. And I know we talked about, insane. Back to some of that homebrew stuff, like the physics in Bobble from Morph Cat, like with the water physics, like this has kind of a similar feel to that, although again, you're platforming on land, but like there's a lot of slopes to the levels.
Big
and like
time.
your character really kind of bounds off those slopes and picks up momentum.
Oh yeah, Gimmick's got crazy momentum.
It's crazy. Like you do have to kind of memorize some of the levels. Yes. I will say, like, they are very much like, oh, if you don't know that brick is going to drop on top of your head as soon as you slide down that slope, like you got no chance on the first try. But thankfully, after you beat a level, it seems like that's kind of a save point. Like you keep. That's if you continue and get a game over, you just pick up from the beginning of the level you were on.
And I think you need to know that that's a conceit going in on a lot of these, especially 8-bit retro games, is like as you kind of learn and kind of quasi-memorize these games, they become more fun, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. And even more so with Gimmick, I would say, than Little Samson.
Yeah.
Like you do have to kind of memorize the levels. But at the same time, that is fun, especially because it's not like a situation where, like, I think we've mentioned on the podcast before, like DJ beating Silver Surfer on the NES. Like,
right.
That is just like pure memorization.
Yeah.
No, like, where Gimmick, because of the physics and because of like, there's a lot of reaction still. Like, you're still like, you still feel engaged. You're not just totally like, I need to memorize this and input the button presses at the exact same time.
No,
it's very much you're reacting because the enemies react to you. They really kind of swarm you at times. And the main gimmick of this game, I feel so cheesy. I said that when I was doing the video too. But the main gimmick of this game is like, not only can you you can kind of like charge this star above your head, and then you don't actually throw it. You throw it forward, but you kind of bound it off of the ground.
Yeah.
And it kind of like bounces, and then again it uses those physics just like everything else, like bounces off of slopes and picks up speed.
Yep.
But you can also like ride on, like, if you get hit by enemies, they hurt you, but you don't jump on them to kill them. If you jump on them, you just kind of ride them.
Right. A la
which is
Super Mario
really,
Brothers 2. Like, it won't hurt you to be on top of them.
Yeah, but you can't pick them up. You just still will like charge stars, and you just kind of like bounce those off of the enemies to hurt them.
Yep.
But a lot of times you don't even really need to buy. You just need to get by them. You don't necessarily need to like take them all out.
No, you get points, but it's
Yeah, it's more about like the exploration and whatnot. And like, for example, like on the very first level, did you find that secret, Randall, on the very first level?
I don't know that I did.
Okay, so at the very first level, so one of the, again, with that star mechanic, where you can kind of bounce it off of the ground, Gimmick can actually ride on that star if you can do it properly. So like at the very end, like on the very first stage, so minor spoiler, I guess, but not really. But because this actually helps a ton. Although again, when you get a game over, you just start from the level you're on. So
which is so
once you progress. So helpful for sure, especially with save states. You don't have to like leave the NES running for a week while you play it every night and try to get past the levels. But yeah, being able to save, like I think I beat I'm on the third level. I beat the first two.
We got to basically the same point then. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got, unless it was a mini boss, it felt like I got to the boss of the third stage, but I died, and I was like, yeah, that's a good place to call it.
I don't even think I got it quite that far. Yeah.
I got very lucky, and I think I even posted a clip of how lucky I got, because that was the end of the third level where, like, again, like I think I mentioned a Gimmick can ride on top of this star, and the way it bounces is like, so on the very first level, at the very end of the screen, you kind of have to go down this like pipe.
Yeah.
But if you take the star and if you bounce off of it in a certain way, and you're able to like, or bank it in a certain way that you can jump really quickly, jump on the star, and there's like a little ledge that you can get up to.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can jump up, and the screen will like shift to a higher level, and like even the music changes when you get up to this. Like it's clearly like, oh, I'm in Secret Land.
Oh man.
And then you jump, and there's like some little precision platforming you got to do. Thankfully, if you miss it, you just fall back down to like the level below. You actually start backtracking to the left.
Right.
But there's like a little secret, like I don't know what it is, some kind of plant, or I don't know, just some kind of collectible, but it gives you a shit ton of points, which actually enough points to give you 2 1-ups.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like a huge, like, especially when you're first learning the game.
Yeah.
It's really a huge pickup to be like, okay, I can like take some chances on this first level and kind of like learn the ropes a little bit.
That's huge.
Again, it's not easy to do, but I'll post a link to the video in the episode description here, because like there is a way where like you can throw it down into that like tube area, or that pipe, and it kind of pops back up, and you still got to be really quick on the jump, but like it's a way that seems kind.
I saw that ledge and I did try to like use the star, and you can, as Gimmick, you can kind of change the trajectory of like the way you want the star to hit by like pressing down or up when you let go of it, seemingly.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
At least that felt that way to me.
It's definitely, it's so physicsy and reactive that like I totally understand if if it has that kind of control, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
But I couldn't quite like throw the star because you have to build it up by holding down that B button and then throw the star and then manage to jump on it before it runs away because the star's fast.
Yeah, and it has a timer as well. Like a couple, it's decently long, but probably like 2-3 seconds, and then it, evaporates, and then you got to charge it up again.
I just couldn't quite get a handle on like jumping on top of it more than just doing it randomly. But I'm like, I wonder if there was something on that ledge, and obviously there is. So that's awesome.
And they do a really great job, I think, of like telegraphing that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Although, like, I did have, I think, again, I think I already mentioned the clip I posted, but I got super lucky. I was like chucking these stars at these enemies, and I was like getting this perfect bank shot off of this little ledge. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm sniping these enemies. And then I tried to like do this jump. Like, I don't remember. I think I was just trying to like get a different angle to hit the other enemy. And it like, again, like the star, because of the way it banked, I was like, I jumped up into this little like where I was just like in between like two tiles of walls, essentially, like in a one tile gap. And like the star bounced off those really quickly, and I ended up just like riding it like through half of the level and bouncing over a bunch of enemies, and ended up getting all the way to the boss. And then it was just like, oh my God, I don't even know what's going on. But like I feel like there's little tricks in every level, for speed running or whatever they put it in there for. There's like little secrets, little goodies.
I think there's great level design in this game. Like the level design's excellent.
And very unique, again, with like using those physics and whatnot. Like
lots of variation.
You see a little bit of physics on the NES with stuff like, Marble Madness or some of those like kind of isometric games. You get a little bit of that feel, but like very rarely, or I would even wager to say almost never. I mean, I guess, in Mario 3, you can like, press down on a slope and like slide down it. And that feels really awesome. But this is on a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's like rudimentary compared to what this thing's doing. Like the feel of it is crazy.
And we're talking like the ledges and the things you're jumping. Like there's one part in like the second or third level. It might even be in the first level actually, where you're like you have to like slide down this slope, and then you might be able to jump far enough where you can clear the whole gap. Yeah. But the way that I cleared it, there's like this kind of taller column or pillar in the middle.
Yeah.
And the way I would clear that is like I would just like glance off of that. But it's like a rounded top pillar, so like you really feel that momentum. Like if you jump a little too late, you kind of just slide off it and fall into the, I can't remember if it was water or spikes or whatever.
Something like, that's gonna kill you.
Exactly. But it's like really reactive. Like I just really like how, again, I wish there was maybe a little less memorization, but as much as, thanks to save states and whatnot and the convenient just way the saving in the game works.
Yeah.
I think it's not too frustrating to beat your head against, especially if you're enjoying the aesthetic of the game as much as I think both of us are.
Yeah, and I didn't even have the benefit of save states, but, just being able to restart a level, not have to start from the beginning of the game when I lose all my lives was enough to be like, okay, I'm going to keep trying. Like that's...
Yeah, because... You always feel like you get a little further than you did the last time,
totally.
like, or even if you didn't make it further, you're like, oh, I just needed to tap jump a little less hard than I did that time.
And the game's just like so beautiful to be in. The visuals are great. The soundtrack is just incredible. Like the soundtrack is just jamming. I love it
nonstop. Like the boss tunes are amazing, and I'm not even usually the biggest boss tune fan. Like those are usually kind of my least favorite songs in games. I kind of like the more vibey stuff or whatever, but man, it's just nonstop greatness. I really love this game.
Disappointed this never got a US release because who knows?
It's really a shame, and it's totally understandable being the 92/93 release, but at the same time, I think I would have been blown away. Although at the same time, if I would have played this as a kid, there's no chance that I could have beat any of these levels.
Yeah, this is way too hard.
Yeah, there's no way little me could have done anything with this game.
Yep.
But anything more to add on this NES stuff, or like anything else you're itching to play, Randall?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure. Yeah.
There's nothing comes to mind off the top of my head. Those are kind of two of the white whales I've had in my mind. Yep. Yeah.
Those are the big two that like stuck in my head that I always wanted an opportunity to play someday, and thought that I'd be, able to get the cartridges before they just went crazy expensive. Like Gimmick is reasonable by comparison. I looked that up too. It's $400 on Famicom and about $750 for that PAL Scandinavian version.
Yeah, but even still, it's like, man, that's a pretty penny. And again, being that we had the reproduction cart with I don't think you paid too much for that. I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think it was like, oh man, I got screwed. But
no,
it definitely those can be a little finicky for sure, especially if you're playing on, depending on what hardware you're playing on. So
yep.
But yeah, I think, I've certainly been talking for long enough. I know. Why don't we toss the ball over to John, who's been getting back into some From Software action.
Nice.
I'm going to play every single From Software game, and I am going all the way back through all the Armored Cores and
yes,
and Cookies and Cream for the PS2. Yeah.
What? No, wait, they made Cookies and Cream?
They made Cookies and Cream.
Dude, that is one of my favorite, just little sidestep, I guess. That is one of my favorite gaming experiences. I played with my friend Josh.
I remember you talking incessantly about Cookies and Cream back in the Best Buy days.
I have gotten rid of, I still have my PS2, and I've gotten rid of pretty much because I rebought a lot of the remasters on PS3 or PS4. Like I've gotten rid of most of my PS2 collection. I think I have only 3 games left in it, and The Adventures of Cookie and Cream is one of them, because it is a pure co-op game where the screen's kind of split in half, and one character controls Cookie, one character controls Cream, and you basically just scream at your friend the whole time. You can also play it single player, where you're like controlling both characters at once, with one analog stick each, essentially. Kind of like Brothers or some of those other games that utilize that mechanic.
Right.
But yeah, I had no idea that that's From Software alum.
Dude, From Software apparently has done so much. I was looking it up, and I just kept going like, good Lord, I can't believe that they made that game. But
I'm taking a dive after
it's great. But I am playing Dark Souls 3 in my quest to play every Souls-like game by From Software. And I haven't beaten Dark Souls 2, but I decided that...
I was just going to ask.
I was going to... Like, Dark Souls 2 is a game that I'm going to, like, play endlessly. Like, it's... I think it's going to be my favorite Dark Souls game by the end of all of this, but currently, as I was texting DJ, I was like, no, I'm going to eat some veggies before I'm going to save my dessert in terms of playing Dark Souls 3. And
this is kind of considered to be like the weakest of the bunch, right?
2 is I think generally considered to be the worst.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which is par for the course of me liking the odd one out. Yeah. But I started 3, and 3 was, I guess, kind of like as a side note, like back when these games first came out, like I remember listening to podcasts and like reading stuff, and everything was talking about these Souls games and how influential they were and like how great they were. And I didn't have a PlayStation. I didn't have anything to play them on. So like I've only owned Nintendo like current systems. So it was just like kind of a whole like area that I was vaguely aware of, but like really shut myself off in terms of actually knowing what anything that people were talking about. And
that was the Nintendo way. N64 and GameCube trained you well in that regard.
Yeah, and there is a thing where you just say like, hey, like for the longest time, I never had an Xbox, so not that they have a ton of exclusives that are up my alley, like Gears and Halo and stuff. I'm not a big shooter player or whatever, but like it was just like I just kind of didn't pay attention to Xbox stuff because I was like, I don't have one, and I don't want to like be mad that I'm missing out on games I want to play.
Exactly. Yeah, but as I'm playing through all the Dark Souls games, I'm finding myself 10 years later being like, this is a really interesting thing that I want to talk about like endlessly. But I also don't want to be the guy who like came to these games a decade later and was like, hey, did you guys know that Dark Souls is really good?
Hey man, sometimes people need a reminder, a little refresher.
Yeah.
But like the thing that I'm actually really enjoying is how distinctly different Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 really are. And I think like I've been able to really hone in on those differences because I'm playing them immediately after each other with no context. Like this is my first time playing through all of these games, but like I'm also playing through all of them basically one after the other. So like that's not the, you know, playing one game and then like having the next one come out a couple years later and then years after that. So you have time to like marinate, or maybe you've played these games like multiple times through and you have all the different playthroughs, but man.
Yeah,
like,
or it just feels like the natural evolution of things if you're just kind of going along as they come out, I guess. But if you're playing them back to back, the differences are probably a little more stark.
Yeah, but like even then, like it's not like I don't know, like they definitely feel kind of more, I don't know, like I was going to say like kind of in like a Zelda progression where like, you know, you're seeing a lot of the same touchstones, but like maybe the approach is a little bit different. Because like in 3, like they've added in focus points as a bar, which kind of turns into like a mana instead of just having a health and a stamina bar. So like before you would have like, the other thing is that I play basically the same build every single game so far, which is a pyromancer. And the game is built specifically about like, or like for the pyromancer build, like it starts you with an axe, and like in this game, it starts you with actually, you know what? I don't think I started pyromancer for 2. Maybe that's why I didn't start with a pyromancy flame. Oh, that just completely gets rid of the point.
That'll do it.
Yeah, whatever. But the point I was trying to make was that like right from the get-go, I was able to play exactly as I wanted to in 3, where I was able to like, that famously starts you off with like a boss battle basically right in the end of the very first area. Like where like it gives you the it's like, here are what all the buttons do in the game. Here's a giant boss. And like it was the first time I think I had like started as a pyromancer and like had like all of my tools like readily available from the beginning, being like, oh yeah, I can fight this boss exactly how I would play any other time or any other game. And like whereas like in Dark Souls 2, like I had to wait for like maybe 4 bosses before I was able to even access pyromancy, and like that was same in like 1 where you couldn't really get spells or like until a certain point in the game, whereas 3 was like right off the bat, like here's what you want to do, you can do it. And I really appreciated that. I thought that was really good for me personally, at least. But
smart to know, because I'm sure a lot of players too had played through the other Dark Souls games, so they kind of figured that was their audience by that point.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, the focus points, like adding in just that like extra layer where there's like, oh, now like all spells use up focus points instead of your stamina, which could recharge over time. So like now you have a finite amount, and then in your Estus flask, which would regenerate your HP if you use them, you now have an Estus flask which will regenerate your FP as well. And you can, as you get more of those, you can allocate them between like every time you get another Estus flask, you can, and this is not locked in, like at any given point, like you can go back to the main area, like beginning like Firelink Shrine area, and allocate them between an Estus flask that will restore your HP or your FP, and you can change that at any time. So like, if you're wanting to do like,
I always love,
it's great.
Yeah, I was gonna say I always like when RPGs like let you kind of reallocate, you know, points or whatever. You know, you just let you kind of re-customize. You don't have to fully commit to your choices.
Yeah, and like the main issue that like for me at least is that 2 kind of offered like the layout of the game where after you beat enemies a certain amount of times, they wouldn't respawn. So you would eventually, like if you were stuck in an area, you could just keep playing it until like you clear out like all the enemies, and you can move farther, even if like say you aren't necessarily getting better at the game, where like that would kind of be what one forced you to do, where you had to learn, memorize every single enemy placement, every single enemy attack.
Right.
And like that was a thing that I really liked in 2, because as someone who would get stuck in 1 like a lot, like it was a much easier game to progress through and not feel like I was, 1, not having fun, and 2, like not like just getting stuck running my head against a wall. So like going back to the 1 formula in 3 has not been super enjoyable in that respect. And like another like super specific nit is just the fact that like every time that you beat a main boss in the game, the boss arena becomes a bonfire, and they space the bonfires out so that they're useful. And that means that there is a lot of distance between the bonfire before a boss and the boss. So
like there's not a pre-bonfire before the boss. Yeah, that's standard operating procedure.
And it's not in the Souls game.
Not in Dark Souls. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my so far been my least favorite thing about the game so far, is that like each time like I'm like, cool, I have to just like kill these 20 enemies and like, or memorize their patterns and like do that every single time I want to re-challenge this boss. And if I get to the boss fight and I've taken some damage, do I just want to go back to the bonfire and start over again so that I can get there with no hits? And it's like,
and the bonfire resets all the enemies.
It sure does.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it doesn't feel like I'm necessarily getting better at the game, and like it just feels like it's kind of wasting my time in that respect.
Yeah, you're going Silver Surfer status. You're just memorizing and plowing, you know.
Yeah. And a thing that I kind of noticed in 3 that kind of sets it apart from 1, because it's not just like, oh, here are all the enemies in every area. Like in 3, they kind of added patrols, so like enemies will move around like that rather than just like stay camped in an area until you aggro them. So like
kind of trigger them, So
it is a lot easier to just run past enemies and like just not have them notice you, or just not like trigger their aggro at all. And like,
well, that's kind of nice.
It's kind of nice, but at the same time, I'm like, well, why do they need to be there at that point? Like, if like the whole process is just me like sprinting past every enemy to get to the boss, like,
it's nice to not to play the game while you're playing the game. That's real good.
Yeah. Like, but like, arguably that's what 2 did. Like you cleared out all the enemies. So there's no game to be played up to that point. So like, I don't know. I'm still only like 17 hours into the game. So like, I know.
That's like 3 times more than I spent on any game. But
I know. But this is from someone who's spent over 100 hours in 1 and 2. So like,
oh damn! I didn't know you put that much time into those already.
Oh yeah. I've put so much time in these damn games.
John, you're pulling me over to the Gospel of Dark Souls 2. I think I need to play that next.
I was just gonna say, Randall, you and I need to, I think, dabble. Like I've just dipped my toe in the water of the From Software games, but not really.
I did
enough
like
to
half
have a real
of the
opinion.
first one, but then I got sad and stopped. But I do have a lot of interest in 2.
And, you know, until this conversation, I had a lot of interest, probably the most, of the Dark Souls games in 3, because it's, at least to me, from the bit I've seen, it just seems the most, like, kind of colorful, like, the world looks the most compelling to me. But some of the things you're saying, I'm definitely thinking, 2 seems more up my alley. Though again, I think I've said, like, I think Sekiro and the kind of branch offs from the Dark Souls games are probably more me than any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to playing Bloodborne next after Dark Souls 3, but I'm definitely going to give Dark Souls 3 its fair shot, because I think, maybe it was at this point in my Dark Souls 2 playthrough that I was like, this game sucks, I hate this. And then, like, after I put in another 10 hours, I was like, this is the greatest game. I love this. This is one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
So I'm still holding out
to
hope
happen.
that, maybe there's going to be something that clicks with me because again, I've just, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a very anal person when it comes to, like, min-maxing in certain ways, but I'm like, all right, I know exactly what the build is that I want to have, and I just need to make it through, like, 4 more areas before I unlock the mechanic to smith the exact axe that will let me do that.
Right.
I have my own issues. Like, that's a me problem.
Oh, man, that's good. That's good. We'll definitely have to have you and DJ bounce off some of this stuff in the future next time we get him on the podcast. Because, I think some of the From Software stuff, not to mention that you and I, like we said, Randall, we got to dig into some of these games eventually. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I know I already gushed a little bit at the top of the episode here about a couple Kultisti games, but I had a couple more I just wanted to mention really, really quick, because another one actually just came out even after Lonely People Potion Shop, which just came out like 3 weeks ago, or maybe a little bit, before that by the time this episode comes out. But they put out a game. I actually don't know what to call it, because it's another little, like, symbol. But I got permission during the stream. Like I said, Kultisti was hanging out in there, and I said, I called it Double Rectangle. And they said that's good enough for them. So, it's basically like this little puzzle platformer that takes place, and they made this over the course of 72 hours. And it's got, like, even these little story cutscenes. There's 3 levels of, like, 4 scenes each, like 4 single screen levels each. So essentially, like, 3 worlds, with 4 little mini single screen levels.
Yeah.
And you're trying to collect one of 4 puzzle pieces on each level. And each level almost takes place on, like, an Etch-a-Sketch, it almost looks like, or like a little, like, frame. And there's a vertical line in the, it starts in the middle, and you essentially control this little platforming character. And there will be 2 different color tiles on the screen. And at first there's just one, and you're just platforming, getting to the exit. But eventually you're able to freeze time once you jump, or a lot of times you have to do it after you jump, and freeze time and then move where that line is at.
Okay.
Which will, once with one of the colors, if the line is to the left of them, like for the green, let's say, I don't know if I have this right off the top of my head, but like for the green, let's say if the line is to the left, then those little tile platforms will be there for you to jump on. And for the red tiles, if the line is to the right of them, they'll be there. So you kind of have to shift that line on the fly to, make sure that you can jump. So I'm above an invisible platform, but if I freeze time and shift the line, I'll be able to, like, make that platform appear beneath me before I unfreeze time, essentially.
Yeah.
But eventually, by the time you get to, like, the third world, that line will also, like, actually flip gravity. So you're actually, like, having to, like, not only switch which tiles appear for you to jump and platform on, but you have to manage gravity at the same time. So just really cool. Again, it only took, 10 or 15 minutes to play through. Again, it was whipped up over the course of 72 hours. And I shouldn't say whipped up, because it's like crafted with so much love. It's got these little story beats in between.
Yeah.
And just really, really cool. And then another game that I just wanted to mention really quick is just called OOO, 3 capital O's. And this is actually one of the main reasons I wanted to mention this, because it's really similar to the game that my buddy Glenn and I were working on.
Oh, okay.
E-. It's like, it's got these 3 concentric circles. And I think I mentioned that, Glenn and I, we started working on a game during the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But essentially the difference here is, like, you have only 3 concentric circles, and you have a character that you control, like a little triangle arrow that is stuck to those 3 concentric circles, and you can jump between them. And then the enemies, it's kind of like a Space Invaders sort of style shoot 'em up, but the enemies might be spawning from, like, the center of those circles, or they might be spawning from the outside and kind of orbiting them, or they might even spawn, like, on one of the 3 rings, and you have to jump between them to kind of dodge them. and blow them away. And it's just a simple kind of high score arcade, just like Don't Eat My Mind, You Stupid Monsters. Like you're just going for a high score. Every enemy you kill is worth a point or two. There might be, as you get further along, there might be, different enemies that are worth more points, because there are like little boss battles. There's a few different power-ups. And then when you're jumping between rings, like, so the difference in the game that Glenn and I were working on, you could jump inwards or outwards with 2 different buttons.
Okay.
This game actually has you just jumping, like, so if I'm on the outermost ring, I'm going to jump inwards next, and then I jump to the innermost ring. Then the next time I jump, I'm going to flip directions. So you're actually like, when you get to the end of the line, you're flipping around and then jumping back in the opposite direction. So you're kind of having to utilize that not only to dodge enemies, but to, manage which direction you're firing in.
Right.
Not only, not to mention like going around either clockwise or counterclockwise to sync up with enemies, but it's just got a really awesome visual style, like these just chunky pixels.
Nice.
That are like really vibrant. The palettes just kind of switch up on the fly. I don't know if it's like because I got crazy combos or, just because I didn't get that high of a score, so probably not. I think it's just kind of like randomly, it just switches up the style, and some really great music from Sulo they partnered up with on this one for the Game Jam.
Nice.
But just, again, I think I mentioned Kultisti's got like 50 entries on their itchio page, developer page, so I'll definitely put a link in the episode description here to where you can check out their stuff. But I think I've done enough gushing for today. I know I said I was going to keep that short, and I could just keep going and gushing about their games, but maybe we'll sync up on some more of their games in the future. Yeah, I can't recommend them enough. They're so unique and so distinct. Like on that Matt Ugg, Super Try, like Daniel Linson level, and they're not even platformers. They're really, every game is really distinct and unique. Although Double Rectangle is a nice little platformer. So. But yeah, I think we can wrap things up there this week, guys. And as always, you can find us on the internet pretty much everywhere through our Linktree page / Pursuing Pixels. But otherwise, we're at pursuingpixels.com for all the podcast stuff. We're on Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Again, you can find all that on Linktree. But until next week, we'll catch you then, and take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wait, real quick. Don't stop yet, John, if you didn't.
Okay.
Can we do one more clap real quick?
Yes.
Just at the end, just in case there's some weird fluctuation or something.
Let's do it.
Cool. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Perfect.
Ooh, that was almost immediate. And then, John, you ready?
Yeah, I did my clap at the same time.
I heard you on that one, but we'll do it. We'll do another one for this one. 1, 2, 3.
Woof.
Got it?
Yep.
The other one felt quicker, but we're good.
Dude,
so I would do claps on both ends, baby.
Yep.
My audio.
We're good. We're good.